Welcome to Talk Treatises.
It's great to be back.
Today we are doing something a little different. Usually when we talk about classics or treatises, I think people's minds go straight to the heavy hitters of fiction, Homer, Virgil, or maybe the high-minded political philosophy of Plato or Aristotle.
Right, the usual suspect.
Exactly. But today we are cracking open a massive, truly comprehensive manual on the terrain of the ancient world. We're looking at the geography of Strabo.
And specifically, we're honing in on the later books, the sections covering the Orient, Africa, and crucially, the administration of the Roman Empire. And I think calling it a manual is exactly the right word. This is not travel writing.
Right, because when I first looked at this, my immediate thought was, okay, it's a map in text form. But it's so much more than here is a mountain, here is a river, hope you have a nice hike. It feels much more like an intelligence dossier.
That is precisely what it is. You absolutely have to understand the context here. We are in the era of Augustus and Tiberius, the Pax Romana. The Roman Republic has pretty recently transitioned into an empire.
A massive one.
Massive one. And an empire that spans the known world has a very specific set of problems. It's not just about winning battles anymore. It's about administration. It's about logistics. It's about holding ground.
So Strabo isn't writing for tourists. He's not telling you where to find the best market in Alexandria.
No, not at all. He is writing for the statesman. He's writing for the general, the governor, the tax collector. If you are a Roman administrator being sent to govern Egypt or a general planning a campaign into Parthia, you don't need poetry.
You need data.
You need hard data. You need to know, where is the water? Who are the people? How do they fight? What are their strange customs that might get my soldiers killed if we don't understand them? And maybe most importantly, how do we tax them effectively?
It really is the transition from myth to strategic data.
Exactly. Strabo himself is a Stoic philosopher, but he's also a deep pragmatist. He's looking at the world and trying to filter out the fables. Though, as we'll see, he keeps a few of the interesting ones in to create a usable, actionable picture of the world for the Roman emperor.
And he's pulling from a lot of sources to do this, right? He's not just traveling everywhere himself.
Of course not. The scope is too vast. He is synthesizing the accounts of Alexander the Great's generals, people like Nearchus and Onesicritus, and he's combining them with earlier, more scientific scholars like Eratosthenes. He's a compiler, a filter.
And the scope is it's staggering. We're going to be talking about the absolute edges of the known Roman world, India, Persia, the deserts of Arabia, the source of the Nile, and the wilds of Libya.
And through it all, the central question Strabo is trying to answer is this: how does a centralized power govern the edges of the world? How do you trade with India without getting ripped off? How do you subdue the Parthians? How do you manage the flooding of the Nile to balance the imperial budget?
It's the user manual for empire.
That's it exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start at the absolute edge of conquest, India.
The mysterious East. For the Greeks and Romans, this was the frontier.
Now, Strabo is writing this from a comfortable position in the Roman world, but for his data on India, he's relying almost entirely on accounts from Alexander the Great's expedition, isn't he?
He is, yes. And that's really the first layer of intelligence gathering we have to analyze. Alexander marched his army right to the Indus River and beyond. He brought with him not just soldiers, but cartographers, writers, thinkers. His generals, like Nearchus and Onesicritus, wrote extensive journals.
So Strabo is essentially reading their field reports.
He's reading their after-action reports centuries later. But he has a problem, a big one.
A credibility problem.
A huge credibility problem, because Alexander's men, well, they liked a good story. They wanted to come back to Greece and impress everyone with tales of the bizarre things they'd seen. So you get these reports of dog-headed men, or men with one eye in the middle of their forehead.
Or, my personal favorite, the people who sleep in their own ears.
Yes, the Enotoquae. Their ears were supposedly so long they could wrap them around themselves like sleeping bags. Now, Strabo reads this, and you can almost feel him rolling his eyes through the text. He explicitly challenges these accounts. He calls them fables.
But, and this is the key part, he still records them. Why record it if you think it's nonsense?
Because a good intelligence officer reports everything, even the rumors. You verify what you can, you express your skepticism, but you keep the fables on file. Why? Because sometimes there's a kernel of truth buried in the fantasy.
A misinterpretation of something real.
Exactly. Or sometimes the fable itself hides a very real economic fact.
Which brings us to the gold-digging ants.
The famous or infamous gold-digging ants.
Okay, walk me through this, because this sounds like pure, unadulterated fantasy.
It does. So the text describes a report from the mountains of the Derde. And in these mountains, live creatures called myrmezes ants that are the size of foxes.
Fox-sized ants.
Right? Stay with me. These ants live underground, and when they dig their burrows, they throw up mounds of earth. And this excavated earth is supposedly packed with gold dust.
So they're basically a natural mining operation.
A very dangerous one, because it sounds insane, but look at the details Strabo provides. He describes the strategy the locals use to get this gold. They can't just walk in and take it, because the ants are described as being incredibly fast and ferocious. They'll attack and kill any man or beasts that come near their mounds.
So how do they get the gold?
It's a heist operation. The locals wait until noon, the hottest part of the day, when the ants have all gone deep underground to escape the heat.
Smart.
Very smart. They take beasts of burden, ride in as fast as they can, grab as much of the gold dust earth as they can carry, and then they just run for their lives. And here's the most brilliant detail. To distract the pursuing ants, they drop pieces of flesh from wild beasts behind them.
Like leaving a steak for the guard dog.
Precisely. So the ants come swarming out, they smell the meat, they go for that, and it gives the humans just enough of a head start to get away with the gold.
So what's the reality here? Were there really giant ants?
Probably not. Modern scholars think it might have been a mistranslation or a misunderstanding. Maybe they were describing large marmots, which are known to dig in that region and throw up earth. Or maybe the ants was a name for a local hostile tribe that guarded the gold fields and attacked like a swarm.
But for Strabo's reader, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter at all. The strategic nugget is this. There is gold in the Dude Mountains. It is surface-level gold, not from deep mines, which makes it easy to collect. And it is guarded by a hostile force, whether it's an animal or a human tribe. Strabo is telling the Roman administrator, here is a source of immense wealth, but the extraction cost is extremely high risk.
It's a pure economic intelligence report, just disguised as a monster story.
Precisely. And speaking of valuable assets, Strabo spends a lot of time on the tank of the ancient world, the elephant.
This section was fascinating. The text goes into incredible detail on how they actually capture these things. It's not just they throw a net over them.
No, it's a technical manual.
Yeah.
It's a step-by-step guide. He describes what's called the enclosure method.
Yeah.
First, they find a large bare spot in the forest, and they dig a massive deep ditch around it, about 4 or 5 stadia in extent. They leave only one narrow point of entry, which they cover with a bridge.
A trap.
A huge, elaborate trap. Then they employ their Judas goats, or in this case, Judas elephants.
Tame females, right.
Exactly. They take 3 or 4 of their most well-trained female elephants and drive them into the enclosure. Then they just wait. At night, the wild males, driven by scent and instinct, hear the females cross the bridge to get to them.
And once they're inside,
the men rush out and close the gate. The wild elephants are trapped.
Yeah.
And then the second phase begins.
The fight.
The fight. They introduce their strongest, most aggressive, tame male combatants into the enclosure. These trained war elephants battle the wild ones, beating them, wearing them down. They also starve them for several days.
And once they're exhausted and hungry.
This is the part that just blows my mind. The elephant drivers, the mahouts, they creep in.
While these giant, wild, angry animals are thrashing around.
Well, while they're exhausted, but still. The driver creeps under the belly of his own tame elephant for cover, then quietly slides under the belly of the wild one and ties its legs together. That
is a job I absolutely do not want.
It's the definition of high-stakes work. It's like ancient cowboying, but with 10-ton animals. But Strabo doesn't just stop at the mechanics of capture. He talks about the psychology of the animal.
The training.
Yes. He mentions that once they are captured and tied to a pillar, they are tamed not just by hunger, but by music.
Drums and songs.
Drums and tunes. They use music to soothe the animal's spirit. Strabo makes a point to say that the elephant is a rational animal, that it can be reasoned with. He tells these anecdotes of elephants in battle who would pick up their drivers with their trunks if they were wounded or shield them from arrows.
He's describing a bond.
A real bond. For a Roman general reading this is crucial information. These aren't just living siege engines. They are loyal, intelligent assets that require specific handling, specific psychological care. You can't just whip them into submission.
Okay, so we have the resources, the animals. Let's pivot to the people. Strabo breaks down Indian society into these 7 distinct castes. And reading this, it felt less like anthropology and more like a blueprint for social control.
It is the ultimate administrative structure. It's a society where everyone has a place, and every place has a function that serves the state. You have the philosophers at the very top, the smallest number of people, but the highest rank.
Yeah.
Their job is to perform sacrifices and predict the weather for the king.
And what happens if they get the weather forecast wrong?
There's a check on their power. They aren't executed, but they are punished with enforced silence. They are forbidden to speak for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
It's a brilliant check on power. It says, you can be the king's most trusted advisor, but you damn well better be right. It prevents them from just making things up to consolidate their influence.
Then you have the second caste, the husbandmen, the farmers.
And this is the largest group, the bulk of the population. And here, Strabo notes something that would be absolutely shocking to a Greek or Roman reader. The farmers are completely exempt from war.
Completely. Like they don't get conscripted, they don't have to fight.
Completely. He describes a scene where 2 armies are engaged in a full-scale battle, slaughtering each other in a field, and 50 yards away, a farmer is just plowing his furrow, completely unmolested by either side.
That is incredibly efficient.
It's the pinnacle of economic resilience. In the Greco-Roman world, war devastates the economy because the farmers get drafted or the fields get burned as a tactic. In this Indian system, war is a professional sport for the warrior caste, but the GDP, the grain supply, remains untouched. The state can afford long wars because the economic engine never stops running.
Then there's the shepherds and hunters, the artisans, the warriors. But the caste that really jumped out at me was the 6th one, the inspectors.
Ah, yes, the inspectors. The intelligence service.
Strabo says their only job is to spy on everyone and everything.
They are the eyes and ears of the king. They have no other function. They spy on everything that happens in the kingdom and report it directly back to the king or to the local magistrates. And Strabo makes a special note that the best and most trustworthy men are chosen for this role.
And he mentions their assets.
Yes. In the cities, they use the courtesans as their informants. In the army camps, they use the camp followers. They have a network embedded in every level of society.
So the king has a dedicated professional network of truth tellers.
It's a mechanism designed to solve the dictator's dilemma. Any absolute ruler has a problem. People only tell you what they think you want to hear. The inspector caste is structurally designed to bypass the sycophants, the generals, the court advisors, and deliver raw, unfiltered data directly to the executive. It's a stunningly sophisticated piece of statecraft.
Which I think brings us perfectly to the philosophy of resistance. Strabo recounts this incredible meeting between Alexander's messengers and the naked philosophers, the gymnosophists.
This is a true clash of civilizations, of worldviews. You have Alexander, the conqueror of the known world. He claims to be the son of Jove. He sends his messengers to these philosophers who are just sitting naked on rocks in the sun, and he basically delivers an ultimatum. Come to me, and I will shower you with rewards. Refuse, and I will have you killed.
Pretty standard imperial diplomacy for the time.
Very standard. And Mandanus, who is the leader of the philosophers, just laughs at the messengers. He tells them Alexander is not the son of Jove, because if he was, he wouldn't be causing so much trouble on Earth. He says the Earth provides him with everything he needs. If Alexander cuts off his head, he says his soul will just be released and go to a better place.
You can't threaten a man who has no fear of death.
And you can't bribe a man who wants nothing. It's the ultimate asymmetric defense. Mandanus has demonstrated a kind of spiritual invulnerability. He argues that true kingship isn't about mastering the world, it's about mastering oneself. Alexander is a slave to his ambition.
A powerful counter-argument, but then you have the other figure in the story, Calanus.
The sellout, you could say.
Or at least the one who was tempted.
He was the one who succumbed. Calanus is intrigued by Alexander. He accepts the offer, he leaves the forest, goes with the Greek army, and accepts the luxury, the food, the fine clothes.
But he can't handle it.
He can't. He gets sick, or maybe he just loses his spiritual peace. He's miserable. And eventually, in front of the entire Greek army, he decides he's had enough. He has a massive pyre built, calmly walks up to the top of it, and has it set on fire. He burns himself alive without making a sound.
Which absolutely shocked the Greeks.
It terrified them. Here was a display of what they called barbarian fortitude. It was a demonstration of willpower that the Greeks, for all their logic and philosophy, simply couldn't comprehend. Strabo is showing his Roman audience that even if you conquer the land of India, the mind of the East remains something distinct, something alien, something that resists the standard Roman levers of power and control.
Okay, let's move west from India. We hit the heart of the old empires, Persia and Assyria.
The land of kings, the traditional rival to the Greco-Roman world.
Strabo has this analysis of Persian military doctrine, and it sounds almost shockingly simple. What do they teach their boys from a young age?
3 things: to ride a horse, to shoot a bow, and to speak the truth.
To speak the truth. That's listed as a core military skill alongside riding and archery.
It is. And in the Persian context, it makes perfect sense. Strabo explains that they view lying as a form of debt, and being in debt is one of the most disgraceful things possible. A soldier who lies cannot be trusted in the chain of command. An officer who lies can't give reliable reports. A society that values truth above all is a society where orders are executed without distortion or question. It builds a rigid, reliable military machine.
They also seem completely obsessed with physical endurance.
It's very Spartan-like, yes. The training is brutal. Boys are trained from the age of 5 to endure intense heat, cold, and rain. They're taught to cross raging torrents without getting their armor or weapons wet. The diet consists of wild fruits, acorns, termentus. It's a system designed to create a hard, loyal, and self-sufficient standing army.
And their leadership is hereditary, but with a catch.
A very sharp catch. The kings are hereditary, but disobedience to the king at any level of the command structure is punished by decapitation. It's an absolute rigid chain of command.
And then from Persia, you get to Babylon. The descriptions here are of a civilization that is it's overwhelming in its scale.
The walls alone are hard to even imagine. Strabo reports that they are so thick that 2 4-horse chariots can pass each other comfortably on the rim.
It's not a wall, it's an elevated highway.
Exactly. It's a statement of power. And then, of course, the hanging gardens. He describes them as vaulted terraces, built one on top of the other. It's essentially a man-made mountain of baked brick and asphalt with hollow pillars filled with earth so that massive, full-grown trees can be planted hundreds of feet in the air.
But the thing that keeps coming up again and again in this section is the engineering of water.
Hydraulic strategy. That's the key to Mesopotamian civilization. Babylon exists in a floodplain between the Euphrates and the Tigris. Strabo describes the river rising like a sea during the melts. If you don't manage that water, you drown. If you manage it too much or in the wrong way, the land becomes too salty to grow crops. So they developed this incredibly complex system of canals, not just for irrigation, but as pressure valves to divert floodwaters.
And they use the unique local resources for their engineering. Strabo talks about liquid fire, naphtha.
This is one of the darker and more bizarre anecdotes in the whole book. Naphtha and asphalt are abundant in the region, and Strabo describes Alexander the Great acting almost like a curious and frankly cruel child. He hears about this liquid fire and wants to test its properties, so he orders it to be poured on a boy in a bathhouse.
Just to see what would happen.
Just to see what happened. They coat the boy in it, and then they bring a lamp near. The boy is instantly enveloped in flames. The text says they barely saved his life by dousing him with massive amounts of water.
That's horrific.
It is. But Strabo includes it to demonstrate the extreme volatility of the substance. For his Roman audience, this isn't just a horror story. It's an intelligence report on a potential weapon.
And it was also a critical construction material.
Absolutely. They used the asphalt as mortar for their baked bricks, which made their structures waterproof. They used it to caulk boats made of reeds. It was the plastic, the sealant, the everything material of the ancient world.
Strabo also touches on the social customs of the Babylonians, and there's one that always gets mentioned: the marriage market.
It's an example of rational statecraft taken to what we would consider a dystopian extreme. 3 tribunals of elders will select all the marriageable young women. Then they would hold an auction.
They sold them.
They auctioned them off. The rich men would bid high prices for the most beautiful women. That money was then collected and put into a fund, which was used to provide dowries for the poor or less attractive women so that they too could find husbands.
So the beauty of the wealthy subsidized the marriages of the poor.
Exactly. It's a system designed to ensure total social stability. Every woman gets a husband, every man gets a wife. There's no demographic of unmarried, restless young men to cause trouble. Strabo just reports it in this matter-of-fact way. To the Roman mind, which valued order above all, this was a strange custom, but perhaps an admirable one in its cold efficiency.
Then there's the other custom, the one at the Temple of Venus.
The custom of Melita. This one was far more scandalous to the Roman mind. The law dictated that every woman, once in her life, had to go and sit in the temple precinct and consort with the first stranger who threw a coin in her lap.
Every woman, the queen.
Every woman, Princess or peasant, you were subject to the goddess, is a kind of religious leveling mechanism. Strabo notes this as a shameful custom, but again, it's data. If you were a Roman soldier stationed in Babylon, you need to understand that this isn't prostitution in the way you understand it. It's a religious sacrament. Misunderstanding the cultural context is how you start riots.
Okay, let's move south from there. We head to the southern flank, to Arabia.
And this is where the dossier becomes a detailed after-action report on a catastrophic failure.
The expedition of Aelius Gallus.
This is a crucial case study for Strabo's whole project. The Emperor Augustus desperately wanted the wealth of Arabia Felix, modern Yemen. The rumors were incredible, that they had doors inlaid with gold and silver, ceilings carved from ivory, they controlled the global spice trade, frankincense, myrrh.
The oil of the ancient world.
Precisely. So Augustus sends his prefect, Aelius Gallus, with a full Roman army to conquer the region.
And it goes terribly wrong.
It goes horribly wrong. And not because the Arabs were superior warriors. Strabo is very, very clear on this point. He says the Arabs were not good fighters at all. The Roman legions were decimated by one thing: geography.
And treachery. You can't forget the guide.
Sylleus. He was the Nabatean guide hired by the Romans. He was supposed to lead them along safe routes to the spice cities. Instead, he deliberately led them through the most barren, waterless deserts imaginable. He took them on long, circuitous routes that wore the army down.
And Strabo says the army was destroyed not by combat, but by disease. Scurvy.
Scurvy and palsy. He describes a stupor of the legs. They were drinking foul water, their food supplies dwindled, and they were marching endlessly in circles. By the time they actually reached the spice cities, the army was too broken and sick to take them or hold them. They were forced into a humiliating retreat.
It's the ultimate lesson in logistics.
It's the ultimate lesson in intelligence. You cannot conquer a desert without trusted local guides. If your primary intelligence asset, your guide, is actually an enemy agent, your legions are worthless. It's a perfect illustration of Strabo's central thesis. Sylleus was eventually captured and executed in Rome, but the damage was done. The wealth of Arabia remained independent.
Speaking of that wealth, Strabo's description of the society that produced it is fascinating. They have this very strange family structure.
A form of polyandry, yes. Strabo describes a system where a group of brothers all share one wife.
All the brothers in a family.
All of them. The eldest brother is considered the primary husband and the head of the household. But all the brothers have access. They use a simple signaling system. A staff is placed by the door to the wife's quarters. If the staff is there, someone is inside and the others have to wait.
But why? What is the logic behind a system like that?
It's all about property. In a harsh desert environment or in a merchant society built on long-distance trade, you absolutely do not want to split the family wealth. If every brother marries a different woman and has a different set of heirs, the family fortune gets diluted with every generation.
But if they all share one wife?
Then all the children belong to the family as a single corporate unit. The wealth stays concentrated. It's a brilliant economic strategy manifesting as a social or sexual custom.
And the wealth they were protecting was very real.
Oh, absolutely. The aromatics. Strabo is careful to distinguish between them. Frankincense, myrrh, cinnamon, cassia. These were the high-value commodities of the ancient world. They were burned in every temple from Britain to India. Controlling the source of that trade was like controlling all the oil fields today.
Which brings us to the real prize of the empire, the imperial granary, Egypt.
The jewel in the crown. The personal property of the emperor.
Strabo's description of the Nile it's almost mechanical. He talks about something called the nilometer.
The nilometer is amazing. It's one of the most sophisticated pieces of ancient technology. It's basically a stone well or a staircase going down to the river with markings etched on the side. There was a famous one at Memphis and another at Elephantine. As the Nile floods each year, the water rises inside the well.
And the priests would read the level.
They'd read the level. But it wasn't just for religious purposes. The government used that data.
They used it to set the tax rates for the entire country, before the harvest was even reaped.
It's unbelievable, isn't it? It is data-driven, algorithmic governance in the first century. If the water hits this high mark, level X, we know the harvest is going to be abundant. So we raise the tax rate to, say, 20%. If the flood is low, we know there will be hardship, so we preemptively lower the tax rate to 5%.
It removes all the guesswork.
It removes the guesswork, and it also removes the political justification for rebellion. You can't complain to the governor that your taxes are unfair if they were set by the river god itself. It's genius.
And Strabo makes it clear that Egypt is treated very differently from other Roman provinces.
Very differently. It was not governed by the Senate. It was the personal estate of the emperor. Senators weren't even allowed to travel to Egypt without the emperor's express permission.
Why?
Because it was too important. He who controls the grain of Egypt controls the food supply for the city of Rome. If you starve Rome, you kill the emperor. So the emperor holds the keys to the granary very, very tightly. Strabo details the unique administration. The prefect, who has the rank of a king, and a special magistrate called the ideologus.
The magistrate of unclaimed property.
Yes. His job was to claim for the emperor anything that didn't have a clear, documented owner. It was a state-sponsored vacuum cleaner for revenue.
And they needed all that revenue to defend the southern frontier, the Ethiopian border,
The frontier of the so-called troglodytes?
the cave dwellers.
Yes, and other tribes like the Plemier and the Megabari. Strabo describes them as very primitive. They fight with wooden bows hardened by fire, their shields are made of raw oxhide, and their diet is a mix of millet, blood, and milk. But they were a persistent threat.
And he talks about their queen, the Candace.
A one-eyed warrior queen. The title Candace was likely a dynastic name, not a personal one. And this queen actually led an invasion into Roman Egypt and fought them. What's interesting is how it ended. Strabo notes that the Emperor Augustus personally met with her ambassadors on the island of Samos and granted them a peace treaty. He even remitted their tribute.
Why would he do that? Show weakness.
No, show pragmatism. What's the cost-benefit analysis of fighting a long, brutal guerrilla war in the Ethiopian desert just to extract a little tribute? It's not worth it. Better to have a stable, neutral buffer state on your border than an active, expensive insurgency. It's smart imperial management.
There's a much lighter moment in the Egypt section, though, where Strabo acts a bit like a tourist. He goes to Arsinoe to see the sacred crocodile.
Suchus, the crocodile god.
And he describes the priests feeding this thing.
It's a scene of complete and utter absurdity. He says the crocodile is just lying there on the shore of the lake. The priests approach it. A couple of them grab its head and force its mouth open with a stick. One guy shoves in cakes. Another pours in wine from a vessel. Then the crocodile, presumably full and drunk, jumps into the water and swims to the other side of the lake to wait for the next boatload of tourists.
It sounds like a roadside attraction in Florida.
It was. But it was also a cult. Strabo is showing us the theatricality, the business of Egyptian religion. It keeps the people engaged, it brings in revenue, but to a Stoic Roman philosopher, it's just a big lizard being force-fed cake.
He also puts on his scientist hat when he visits the pyramids. He sees these little lentil-shaped stones scattered all around the base.
Nummulites, which are, of course, fossils.
But the local guides tell him a story. Oh, these are the petrified leftovers of the workers' food. These are lentils that turned to stone over the millennia.
And Strabo just isn't buying it. He says, no, that's impossible. He compares them to similar geological formations he's seen back home in Greece. He doesn't know exactly what they are. The concept of fossils wasn't fully understood, but he knows they aren't petrified lunch. He applies reason and comparative geology to debunk a local myth.
Finally, we move to the last corner of the map, west, to Libya and the Pillars of Hercules.
The land of nomads and navigational hazards.
Strabo seems almost frustrated by the geography here.
I think he is, because it defies Roman order. The structure of North Africa, as he describes it, is a series of parallel strips. You have the habitable coast, then you have a range of mountains, then you have the vast empty desert. And the people who live there, the Gaetulians, the Garamantes, they don't have cities.
Which is a problem for the Roman army.
It's a huge problem. You can't conquer a city if it doesn't exist. These tribes raid the coastal settlements and then just melt back into the desert where the legions can't follow.
He also talks about a kind of ecological warfare.
Yes, the prevalence of wild beasts. He mentions lions, elephants still living in Mauritania, and swarms of scorpions and tarantulas. He even describes entire tribes being forced to migrate simply because the scorpions in their region became too numerous to live with. It's a powerful reminder that in this era, nature is still a dominant military combatant. You aren't just fighting men, you are fighting the environment itself.
And the greatest environmental hazard of all was the Great Syrtis, the shifting muds.
A true navigational nightmare. A massive bay off the coast of Libya where the tides and the mudbanks shift so unpredictably that ships that enter are frequently swallowed whole. It was a notorious ship killer, and it acted as a perfect natural defense for the interior tribes. The Romans could rule the sea, but the Syrtis was a no-go zone.
So we've surveyed the entire known world, from the gold-digging ants of India to the treacherous muds of Libya. What's the final synthesis here? What is Strabo's world?
Strabo organizes the world by function, by its utility to Rome. Europe is for men and war. It's where the best soldiers and the talent for command comes from. Asia is for wealth. It's the treasury of the world, full of spices, gold, and ancient cities. And Africa is for mystery and resources, grain from Egypt, beasts from the interior. But it's a difficult, dangerous, and often unconquerable place.
And overlaying this entire map is the organizing principle of the Pax Romana.
The Peace of Rome. Strabo concludes his work with what is essentially a eulogy to Roman power. He believes that by dividing the world into these manageable provinces, by sending out these prefects and inspectors and tax collectors, Rome is bringing order and civilization to the barbarians. He sees the map itself as a tool of dominion. Geography is intelligence, and intelligence is control.
Which brings us to the so what? Strabo gives us the data. Let's play with it. It's time for our thought experiment segment.
And our usual disclaimer. The following scenarios are for entertainment and educational purposes only. Do not try to build a Nilometer-based government in your backyard.
Thought experiment number 1. The Nilometric algorithmic state.
I love this one. Okay, so we take the core concept of the Nilometer basing taxation on real-time environmental data, and we fast forward 2,000 years.
Imagine a modern state. But there is no legislature debating tax policy. There's no Federal Reserve chairman agonizing over interest rates. Instead, the entire fiscal and monetary policy of the nation is automated and pegged directly to ecological sensors.
Satellites monitoring crop yields in real time. Sensors in the water table measuring drought conditions. Algorithms tracking national energy reserves and supply chain efficiency.
If the sensors detect a 10% drop in the projected wheat yield for the year, the system automatically issues a 5% tax rebate to every citizen to prevent famine and economic contraction. If energy reserves are critically high and demand is low, interest rates automatically go up to curb inflation.
It's the ultimate technocracy. It would, in theory, create a perfectly responsive, perfectly rational economy. It removes human greed, bias, and political squabbling from the equation. The river or the algorithm doesn't take bribes.
But what's the implication for society? Do we become like the ancient Egyptians? Do we start worshiping the algorithm?
We absolutely would. Strabo describes the priests feeding cake to the crocodile because the crocodile is a symbol, a physical manifestation of the all-powerful river. In our scenario, we'd have server priests in clean suits anointing the Google data centers. We would become completely fatalistic. You couldn't argue with the decision. The algorithm has decided times will be hard this year. It removes all human agency from politics.
And what if the algorithm is wrong or hacked?
Catastrophe. Absolute catastrophe.
Okay. Thought experiment number 2, the inspector caste protocol.
This is based on that Indian intelligence caste we talked about.
So we rewrite the Constitution. We still have the executive, the legislative, and the judicial branches. But we add a 4th branch of government, the inspectorate.
And their only job is to observe and report objective reality. They have no power to make laws, no power to arrest anyone, no enforcement capability whatsoever. Their sole constitutional duty is to publish verified objective facts.
But here's the kicker. To prevent them from being corrupted, we condition them like a caste. Maybe through intense psychological training from birth, maybe even some kind of genetic engineering, they are made fundamentally incapable of political ambition.
They can't hold any other office. They can't own stocks or businesses. They're essentially monks of data. Their only satisfaction comes from the purity of their reports.
So, would this fix modern politics? If you had an unimpeachable, constitutionally mandated source of objective truth that could say the president is lying or this law will have these specific economic consequences and everyone had to accept it as fact?
Strabo would probably say yes. He admired the efficiency of the Indian system. It would, in theory, eliminate disinformation and force politicians to debate policy on a shared set of facts. But the danger is, well, who watches the watchers?
Right.
If that inspector caste, for whatever reason, ever decided to lie, reality itself would break. They would become the ultimate shadow rulers. Because if you control the information the king sees or that the public sees, you control the king.
The person whispering in Alexander's ear is ultimately more powerful than Alexander himself.
Exactly. The power of pure information could become the most dangerous tyranny of all.
So we've gone from the Indus to the Pillars of Hercules. Strabo leaves us with this incredible picture of a world that is vast, dangerous, overflowing with strange customs, but ultimately a world that is knowable, a world that can be measured.
He is the essential bridge between the explorer and the bureaucrat. He takes the wild stories of the adventurer and translates them into actionable data for the administrator. He tells us that to rule the world, you first have to measure it. You have to know where the ants dig the gold.
And you have to know where the sacred crocodile eats the pate.
Precisely.
Thank you for listening to Talk Treatises.
Until next time.